Countrywide Connect, connecting farmers and growers to what they need to know to grow. Your daily innovative rural show with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perry-Lamb.
Well, welcome into Countrywide Connect on the 16th of April. We hope you're having a beautiful day around the country. It looks like the weather's very variable and looks like it's absolutely going to post down here in Canterbury next week, Andy. So I'm going to make the most of my weekend in the garden.
Yeah, well, it's been hail, thunder, lightning, typical spring weather here in autumn on the West Coast, Sarah. So I don't know what to expect actually coming up. We're getting a bit of everything. I did see a report with how many lightning strikes there were over the last 24 hours around our region, and there were a lot, I can promise you. Yeah, so we'll just have to, we've actually got the heat pump on, fire on. People are saying, we've gone from summer, basically no autumn and straight into winter. So, that happens, but there's still time. We can still get a few warm days, so hopefully.
I went out to feed the chickens this morning and put my compost out, and I went and had a little look at my first time growing yams. And
Yes.
Apparently the mid-Canterbury arable farmers have told me you've got to let them get nailed by a couple of frosts, and that makes them really sweet and juicy. So I'm working on that. That's my next harvest.
All right. Hey, one of the reasons we're doing this show live is so we can keep up with breaking news, and certainly this morning has been no exception. We're scrambling actually to try and get either Minister Hoggard or Minister Todd on the show, but there's been some changes to the stock exclusion rules. Apparently they're more practical and more targeted. If we could get either of those ministers on, we will try and talk to them during the show. But in the meantime, I haven't had a chance to really understand it. Sarah, have you had a look?
I have had a very brief skim, as have you. Basically, the announcement is something to no surprise, and something the government's been campaigning on, is around changing those unworkable stock exclusion regulations to replace the one-size-fits-all with local decision-making. This is something that's been flip-flopped everywhere. Southland farmers will probably be very excited, I imagine. As I saw, Andy, 27 farmers out of 3,500 farmers in Southland have actually submitted a farm plan by the deadline of next week. So, yeah, more to come. What does this mean?
I've just had a quick skim while you've been reading that. And it's to do with, Regulation 17 of the Resource Management Stock Exclusion Regulations, which relates to natural wetlands that support threatened species, has been amended so it no longer applies to beef cattle, deer that are not intensively grazing. The previous rule required all stock to be excluded from natural wetlands supporting threatened species regarding of farming intensity. So I think we're talking about here maybe in a West Coast context, Southwestland, down on those rivers down there, really, really south of Haast.
Yeah.
And also areas probably that are not intensively farmed, but it means you couldn't graze stock anywhere near them, either deer or beef, because it wouldn't be practically possible or practically feasible to fence the waterways off. So I think that's what we're looking at here. Yep. I'm sure some of the opponents of farming will jump up and down and say that it's another way that we are that the government is ignoring the environment, but I don't think it is. If that's what it is, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
And it's what's deemed a natural wetland has been the grey area as well. I mean, we know that deer love to naturally wallow, and they can see a low-lying area that has ponding where deer actually naturally need to wallow. So therefore, you'd argue from an animal welfare perspective that you're taking that away from them. So yes, we will get into more detail. This show will try and get either Minister Hoggard or Todd McClay on the line. If not, we definitely will be talking about it tomorrow on the show. Another thing that's just come out too, Andy, is the agricultural production survey numbers. Sheep just keeps on going down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But beef's going up, so it's a good news, bad news.
It is. So Richard Badley will have more in our rural news at 12 o'clock, brought to you in partnership with Farmlands on our beef cattle numbers on the rise. Hey, cool show again today, Andy.
Yeah, let's get into it, eh? So we're going to, just before 1 o'clock, we're going to wrap the show with Tracy Brown, Chair of DairyNZ. The South Island Dairy event just finished yesterday. So I'm going to have we'll have a chat to her about that. She was there and get an idea of what are DairyNZ's priorities for the coming season. Lindy Nelson, the Chair of Safer Farms, they put out you never let a good opportunity go by, I wouldn't have thought. And Safer Farms have done this. They said, hey, farmers, with the big capital payout you got yesterday, maybe it's time to buy some crush protection for your motorbikes. Sensible plan, I would have thought, and there's some discounts, so we're going to talk to her about that. And also we're going to talk to MyFarm CEO Andrew Waters, explain where capital is flowing in horticulture. And then just after 12, Jaden Drought is going to give us a real-time indication of where farmers are spending that money when it comes to machinery sales.
Oh, I absolutely love talking to Jaden, and I think you haven't met Jaden yet. I think you're going to like having Jaden on as a regular, president of Tractor and Machinery Association currently, as well as owner of Farm Trader. So I can talk to him about life as a publisher. Just before 12 o'clock, Mark Ross, who is the CEO of Wood Processors and Manufacturers Association, talking to us on a few things. The election manifestos are rolling out thick and fast. What are the wood processors looking for? How do they feel about the India FTA in regards to log values? And also I'd like to talk to them a bit more about woody biomass and that is a fuel alternative and what innovations are happening in that space. 11:30, Steve Abel, the agricultural spokesperson for the Green Party, joins us about his vision for rethinking New Zealand ag and our food systems. Dun, 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 dun. At 11:18, we will be speaking to the mighty former All Black captain, Taine Randell, and New Zealand first candidate for Tuki Tuki. I'm very excited about that. Congratulations on getting you.
See, I had a very, very specific instructions from my co-host. Get Taine on the show. Get Taine on the show. Basically.
Yeah, 100%. But waiting on the line, and I've been really enjoying the LinkedIn posts coming from this next guest, is Dr. Nic Lees, Senior Lecturer, Department of Agribusiness from Lincoln University. We're going to be talking about the Fonterra strategy, what the capital return means for New Zealand and for the sector and Fonterra, as well as the execution of this strategy by the new CE, Richard Allen. Thank you for joining us, Nic. Hey, look, you're not very far from us, so next time, please come into the studio in Christchurch. We'd love to have you in here.
You're in Tapu, are you?
No, we're actually just moved to the Christchurch airport in Sir William Pickering.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I'd be happy to do that.
Amazing. Hey, so Nic, lots of different topics you could talk about in your role in agribusiness at Lincoln. But let's look at this super payout. It's being talked up as a big income boost alongside obviously good milk price and a dividend returned. What is the reality of the payment as a one-off event and that reset of that Fonterra strategy?
So I think the first thing to really realise is that this isn't really treated as income. It's a capital return to dairy farmers. And so that makes it quite different in the way that farmers potentially will use it. And I think because of that, really what's happening with this strategy is that Fonterra is saying that we believe that farmers can generate a higher return on that capital than we can in our consumer business. So, I think it's really important with Fonterra to realise that it's not a normal company or business, that it is a farmer-owned cooperative. And as that means that their goal is actually maximising farmers' returns and benefiting farmers. So I think that's really what that comes down to. So I think what you'll see is that farmers will invest some of that money in reducing debt because that immediately gives them a significant return on that capital. Then there's likely to be more investment in on-farm infrastructure and capital expenditure.
Nic, I was talking to a farmer yesterday, a Fonterra farmer, and he said to me, don't get too excited. When we bought our shares, they were $6.50.
Yeah.
We're just paying that back. That's basically the way he put it to me. Everyone's getting excited about this $400,000 average per farm. He said, it ain't going anywhere. And not everyone's in that boat, but he said, if you're a farmer of my generation, that's where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think that is part of the strategy to effectively lower the share price. So by returning equity to farmers. And, I think that's true that, the money that's been invested in Fonterra is farmer money. So this isn't, some kind of payout. It's really just a shift in that capital from the cooperative back to the farmers and the on-farm. And so one of the things that's going to do is it is going to reduce the investment that farmers have in Fonterra. And in many ways, that's a good thing because a lot of farmers have had a lot of capital tied up in Fonterra. And, particularly when it hasn't performed well, that's had a big impact on farmers.
Nic, one thing that's interesting, just picking up off Andy's generation of farmers talking about paying that back, my generation of farmers with regards to getting into Fonterra, and obviously there's a My Milk scenario for buying in, it had got to a point where the next generation couldn't necessarily get into the same level because and a lot of retiring dairy farmers on the horizon really soon. This was a real problem for Fonterra.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think that's another part of the strategy is to lower the entry barriers to getting into Fonterra. Because as you said, at a very high share price, there was a lot of money going into Fonterra, and that was a real barrier. It's also a real risk. When we talk about cooperatives, we talk about the portfolio problem, which means that if you're just a normal rational investor, you're going to diversify your portfolio. So, the risk with Fonterra was that farmers basically were tied in terms of putting their capital into Fonterra. So that's a real risk because, that capital is really just determined by how well that company performs.
Nic, just the whole strategy of Fonterra selling the brands Mainland, Anchor, and I think Capity Ice Cream is well known now, and that's been worked through, and the money's been returned. But my question is, does appointing Richard Allen as the new CEO play into that strategy, or what do you make of his appointment now?
I think it's very clear his appointment is the board is signalling that they're moving from their strategy of simplifying the business, of diversifying businesses that weren't core to their focus on ingredients and food service. And so I think the real signal with Richard Allen's appointment is that the board is moving from strategy to execution. So that's going to be, what he will be really judged on. Can he really make the new simplified model focusing on, higher value ingredients and food service? Can he make that really perform?
Nic, one thing I'd like to really see as we're moving from a branded consumer product on the outside to an branded ingredient strategy is I'd like to see from Fonterra what that looks like. I look at the wool industry. I look at what Wool Source have done with collagen in Lincoln and how they've got that as a branded ingredient. Similar to ZQ with Zenterra. What could they be putting in place, or what do they have already in place that we can own uniquely and it can be carried through as a brand mark?
Yeah, so I think, really moving from a consumer business to a B2B business doesn't mean that you're doing away with brands or that you're doing away with value-added products. And, so I think Fonterra's strategy, and Fonterra has a huge research and development organisation and investment. And so what you're going to see is that there's going to be a shift to putting that money into developing higher value ingredients. So that might be sports nutrition, medical ingredients. proteins, sports nutrition, and one of the things that you can see that there is the ability to patent those and to brand those. And so I think that's going to be the focus. A lot of people think value add is just about consumer brands. But the problem with value add is that it can also involve value cost as well. So it's really about where you can allocate your investment. And I think their strategy around UTH milk, UTH cream for food service. You've got another good example with their mozzarella cheese, which they can produce. They have the technology to produce that in a very short period of time. So what you'll see investment. A part of it will go into really looking at how do they reduce the costs, manufacturing efficiency, but also how they can increase the margin and create a very close relationship with their B2B customers. And you're going to see innovation around ingredients and food service.
Nic, just quickly before we go, how do we know this? What will be the obvious signs that this is working? I'm not just purely talking about payout, right? Because that's pretty obvious. What are the signs? What should we look for?
I think what you're going to see, the real question is, can Fonterra generate a strong return on capital from this strategy? And I think that's what it will be ultimately judged on. And because one of the focuses of this is really around capital allocation. And I guess a big factor in terms of is this successful or not is can Fonterra actually generate significant value from their ingredients and food service business and their focus. And I think that's where operational excellence is going to come in. Fonterra is a huge organisation. It's easy to say this is about execution, but execution in a organisation as large as Fonterra is not easy. There's a lot of moving parts that need to come together to make that perform.
Dr. Nic Lees, who is an Professor of Agribusiness, my apologies, at Lincoln University. Thank you so very much for your time. I look forward to having you regular on the show. You've got a lot to contribute.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Nice to have a chat with you. Look forward to doing that again in the future.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Nic.
Okay, no worries.
What do you think there, Andy?
Interesting, really, really interesting strategy that we're going to see from Fonterra. And I think there's a lot of people uncertain about the moving away from the consumer brands business. And I know our next guest, Taine Randell, New Zealand First, were not overly happy with that at all. Winston was very anti it. I thought it was a stupid move. And I know Damien's not very happy about it either. So there's certainly a lot of questions about it, but I can tell you, not hearing too many questions about the farmers, because when it comes to farmers, you're producing a product. All you're interested in is what you get paid for that product, whether it goes out in a fancy packet or whether it's B2B, B2C or B2C, they don't really care.
Yeah, but if you were based in Aussie or America and you're a dairy farmer supplying a privately owned dairy business, the government has no say whatsoever in whatever you do. Because it's a cooperative, why does it make any difference to Winston?
I don't know why they get the sticky beak in it. I think it's a sort of national pride thing, a little bit. I'm not sure. There is the one thing about it, though, that Fonterra was formed by an act of parliament, right? There were some specific rules around Fonterra and the way they had to operate and what they needed to do. The DAERA rules, right? Now, was 25, 26 years ago now. We're moving away from that. Look at the competition in the dairy industry in New Zealand now with Open Country, with Synlait, with Westland, all of those. So, I think there's definitely some hangover from that. But anyway, when it comes to farmers, bottom line counts. Good for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited to talk about our next guest. And for me, Andy, you wonder why. As a young child, I collected the little figurines. This gentleman was one of them. He was also, of course, the Otago captain, was he? At the time, or involved in the Otago team when I was just learning to love rugby. Taine Randell has a deep connection to Hawke's Bay, growing up there, and is doing a full circle after a career overseas in business. Welcome to the show. I did not know on Monday I was going to say this. Taine Randell.
Good morning, and neither did I.
That broke in a hurry, didn't it, Taine? Hey, look, really appreciate you on the show, mate. And as you can tell, there's a little bit of a fangirl there. She is a very big Otago fan. I'm a Crusaders fan, but you'll forgive me for that, I know, or probably not. To be fair.
Yeah, no, great to be here. I'm really excited. Bit of stress, and I say originally, even up until recently, not a unanimous decision in the Randell household, with teenage daughters and that sort of stuff who are embarrassed by their parents anyway. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I count myself lucky. New Zealand's been really good to me and my family, and now feel as I'm in a really good place to be able to contribute back.
Let's talk about your post-rugby career from 2006. You went on to use your degree, and talk us through, for those who haven't really followed your career since 2006, which is 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I know, 20 kilos as well. So I finished playing rugby in London and moved straight into a job with an oil broking company, or commodity brokers, of which I was in the oil swaps division. So we did Brent and WTI swaps and futures, which was a really exciting time, pre-GFC, where things were going all over the place. It was brilliant. And as I say, as a first time job, it was pretty much you learn on your feet. They gave you about 5 different telephones and 10 different screens, and that was it. Just get going, mate, sell something. was it. And trial by fire, but it was a fascinating time for me. High commodity trading, and London at the time was the world's centre of finance, so it was brilliant. And then we came back here, and I handed my resignation in on the day that Lehman's Bank went bust in London, and the main reason being there, my lovely wife was sick of the UK weather. We'd had 12 years in Dunedin, and she was coming back home to Hawke's Bay, and I can come if she wants. Came back here. Sort of took a year and a bit to settle in, and then I got involved in the ETS. And the link there was when I was in London, when I started in my oil broking job. That was when the European emissions market started. So when I came back, armed with a little bit of knowledge, enough to be dangerous. That was my first sort of working job back in New Zealand, which was it was fascinating as well. And since then, I've had a couple of jobs, culminated in we had a family business, freeze drying business, which was on a pretty good global sort of scale here in Hawke's Bay, which we did all of Watties, freeze drying beans, sweet corn, and peas, and we also developed freeze-dried pet food and baby food. So that's been pretty much it. And now the next chapter in my life, that's why I said in terms of qualifications, I've been to university, which is a great time. Played sport and got paid for it, which when I first started was never a consideration. And then, as I say, in overseas and back here, had a bit of working career. Now feel qualified to go on this next part of my life, which is hopefully going to be a good career in politics.
Taine, there's 3 jobs in New Zealand that I always say are the 3 most important jobs. There's the All Black captain, there's the President of Federated Farmers, and there's the Prime Minister.
Oh, sorry, 2. No, just joking.
You stop it. You'll get me in trouble. You've ticked one of those boxes. Are you going to go for the make 2 out of 3?
Being Federated Farmers, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well done, well batted away. You're very experienced there.
I've been asked about that and stuff, and it's like in rugby. Everyone wants to be the All Black captain, And same thing I've been told, and everyone wants to be the Prime Minister. Genuinely, for me, I don't see this is not. Politics for me is not something a career path. It's not something that I'm going to do as a stepping stone to a job for the UN or a banking job afterwards. This will be the last thing I do in my working career, and however long that may or may not take. I've no aspirations for leadership at the moment. All I'm doing is getting up to speed as quick as I can. I've got a few thoughts that I'm keen to push, but as I say, that stuff is way down the line.
It's interesting you say that, because we've seen so many career politicians and we've become frustrated with that whole pathway, yet people like yourself that have actually had a good career. We had Katie Milne on earlier this week, that have got a good basis and understanding of boots on the ground, are the people we need in politics, but you genuinely wouldn't really want to, the way politicians are treated these days. Was it a really big decision for you?
Yeah, it's been, as I say, not exactly a unanimous household decision or Randell household decision, but I think my wife said, what are you doing this for? You know, what are you, do you need the program? No, well, you've been the All Black captain, you know, business-wise, and we can keep doing that sort of stuff. Why politics? As I say, I don't see this as a job, and it's not a career pathway for me. I guess you just turned 51 last year, and you're sitting around with guys your own age, moaning and groaning and whatever else. And I guess one of the things was you either do something. I've got a few concerns about. I love our country. We've got a great country. You know, we've got so much more potential as well. But there's a few risks around what we could or can't do. So, you know, you either put your head in the ring and try and do something about it, or turn into an old grumpy guy on the sidelines.
Taine, I'm not going to ask you what is a woman. I thought that was a fairly unfair question this morning. But what I am going to ask you about is your priorities. You're in the Hawke's Bay, obviously water storage. You're in Tukituki. We've spent a lot of time about Tukituki, and I know energy security. Why are those two things important to you, or so important to you?
Well, I'll go energy first. So our freeze-drying business, we were part of a large group of businesses who used to negotiate power deals together. And in 2022, we had three-year renewal dates. Our power bill doubled. And as I say, that as a family business, that freaking hurt. And we're trying to, horticulture, agriculture, we've got some really premium stuff here in New Zealand, but we're also pretty good at doing peas, for example. And we freeze-dried all of Heinz Wattie's peas. And crikey, you double your power. Our main expense was basically labour and electricity. And why that got my goat, so I'll keep going. Then last year, those 3-year deals renewed again. I'm pretty sure they're up about 70 or 80% again. So like what? But what used to be a massive competitive advantage for our country, which was renewable, sustainable hydro energy, geothermal energy, has become now a weakness for our manufacturing in this country. And that gets my goat. I think I actually don't blame the electricity companies. They're doing what they're being told by their owners, which has been the government for the last 40 years. I think it's just been a massive failure. Short-term vision of our politicians have led us to where we are today. And so one of the things I think I can add is actually, you get bureaucrats doing market reviews, handing to people who don't really know about their sector. They hand out portfolios all the time, and just you can do that. You can move from police to power. I mean, like, what? I've genuine experience, and I've seen the effect of our own business. I've seen in Hawke's Bay, Wattie's has closed their frozen vegetables business. McCain's has closed these have been intergenerational, incredibly well-run, good businesses gone, and I see it as a direct result of our poor electricity policies.
It's interesting. You just triggered something. I'm using my famous Gemini on my computer to find out the exact facts, but I know that Jacqueline Routh is big on this. So the State Services Act meant that ministers no longer had to have work experience in that particular field. And if we bring that back, we would have experience coming into those ministerial roles that would be really, really helpful. So, yeah.
I think in my experience, we used to export some pretty innovative. Our company, we developed the first ever freeze-dried premium pet food in the world, and we processed for 2 companies. They were the biggest suppliers to China and a lot to Europe and the States. Dealing with people in central government, they are great for regulation. They are not great for innovation. And when I think about people doing market reviews and all that sort of stuff, or looking at supermarkets, or looking at the electricity reform, that sort of stuff, they don't know how the market works. And they give that advice to ministers who, not from that, with no industry knowledge. Hence, I'm not surprised we are where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got some tough competition there. I know we just about need to go to a break in a couple of minutes. You're up against Catherine Wedd, a friend of yours.
Really nice lady.
Yeah. Good people in that region in the Hawke's Bay. So it's going to be a tough battle for you. You said it's not unanimous in the family. I've had a personal experience with that. That's not unanimous at all. I know what you mean by that, but it's tough. Are you ready? You thought All Blacks captain was tough. The personal attacks, the barbs you're going to get. You ready for that?
Well, people, exactly. People, but I say, captain the All Blacks to 5 losses in a row. You talk about.
Well, I do remember that. Yes, I wasn't going to bring that up.
I know. So the text said personal, vindictive, all the rest of it. And as a 23-year-old, I was at the time, that hurt. I was scarred by that for a long time. But then you sort of realise, well, and even now I think with the more personal and vindictive and stuff that is, usually comes from people who don't add a great deal of value. So Gordon Hunter, one of my earliest coaches in rugby, and then he said, if there's something you can't do about it, then you might as well roll up the carpet and have a sleep. And that's, my approach. It happens. It's great, and it's just normal. We all have a stake in our country. We all have a stake in the people running it. We're all entitled to our views, and that's sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Sarah, are you there?
Yes, I am. I think we might have to work on rural connectivity as another policy with Taine Randell.
Right.
There he goes.
I don't know why they lost. I actually got you fine. So obviously there was just a wee breakdown there, Taine, but I certainly had you coming through loud and clear at my end, so I'm not sure what's going on. We're just working on this.
Are you there, Taine?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear Andy. I can hear you as well.
Yeah, wonderful.
I can hear you both.
We definitely think you have the resume for success. And Andy, I actually Googled and found out Catherine Wedd's is quite far down the list, so she needs this. She'll be hungry to get in as an elected MP. So we're going to be following your electorate very closely at the election, Taine. Best wishes, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Great, brilliant. Thank you both.
Cheers.
All right.
Taine Randell.
Yeah. So, Sarah, I'm not sure. There's maybe some conductivity issues somewhere, but I was fine with that. I was just going to say before we go to our next guest, and maybe we could ask our next guest the same question, but what I like about Taine standing, and people like Taine standing for politics, is when they don't have to. And I always get concerned about people. You talked about career politicians and people who make it their job. When people are doing it, they don't have to do it. And because they've got a passion for something. I don't care whether it's left, right, green, yellow, orange. If they've got a passion for it and they're doing it for the right reasons because they believe in it, I think that's what makes the best politicians.
Yep, absolutely. With people that don't have to prove anything, they don't need the fame, they genuinely are doing it for purpose. And I think it's a really good reminder that if you sit there and complain about it, you don't get a right to vote unless you do something about it, and Andy and I, we could go into politics too, but different ways. I do worry if we think governors should be innovators, the government is not there to innovate, but they are there to make sure that it is a supportive environment for innovation. And I think that he's going to bring great things to that. So best wishes to Taine. Hey, Andy,
Yeah,
I think
sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think his list position will be a problem.
No, his list.
I don't think he has to win that seat to get into Parliament, is what I'm saying. I think his list position in New Zealand First will be reasonably secure, particularly if that poll of them on 13% is there.
But I do think that Catherine is probably shaking in her boots a little. Hey, talking politics, we're going to stay in this realm, as I believe our next guest is on the line. Steve Abel is the agricultural spokesperson for the Green Party. Joins us now. Steve, thank you very much for your time in joining Countrywide Connect. It's there's a lot to discuss, and actually we're going to stay in the Hawke's Bay just off the back of, I don't know if you heard, Taine Randell was on the show. He was involved in freeze drying Wattie's peas. So we're talking the closure of Heinz Wattie's and McCain's Food, of huge concern in the loss of the processing. But Steve, at the end of the day, what can the government do to enable that those big processes don't shut down, in your mind?
G'day, yeah, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I think the reason I've called for an urgent inquiry into the closure of McCain's and Heinz Wattie's and the Greggs factory in Dunedin is exactly to answer that question. What is the impact of this closure on local growers? What's the impact on local workers? What is the long-term effect of allowing these closures on our ability to, process our own food production and to feed ourselves, essentially? So I'm seeking that we have an urgent 12-week inquiry at the Primary Production Select Committee and ask some of these questions and come back with a report to the Parliament advising on what we have learned in terms of the cause of the closure and also the consequences, but also to ask what things could be done to ensure that these facilities don't close.
Steve, you said the word allow there. We don't live in a command economy. We live in a free market economy. The government doesn't have the ability to demand a private company do anything, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the point is that I think there's a point where we as a country have to ask the question, are we content for something as important to us as the way our ability to process our own food and produce food for ourselves and feed ourselves in a bigger context, are we content for that to be left entirely to the whim of the market? Because I think what we're seeing with these closures is local production being undercut and local processing costs being undercut by imported product. And therefore we are losing the ability to do that work here simply because the market is always going to be able to produce something cheaper somewhere else. Now, there are other parts of the world, the Netherlands is an example that comes to mind, where after the Second World War, where that country had serious issues with its food supply, they decided that the number one priority for them as a nation would be to first and foremost feed themselves, and then a second priority would to be an agricultural exporter, and they're an extremely successful agricultural exporter, as you would know, the Netherlands. And so it's not an either or, but I think we have to have the ability to have a serious and mature conversation about how important our local resilience is for us.
But we don't have subsidies, Steve. We have a subsidy-free economy. We do not subsidise our farmers. We don't subsidise anybody effectively when it comes to food production. We also have got a cost of living crisis at the moment where food is getting more and more expensive. You can't blame people for buying imported food that is cheaper than what we're producing here. So you can talk about all of these possibilities, but what is the actual answer here?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's about blaming anybody, to be honest. It's about understanding the nature of the problem. Everyone has a bunch of reckons on what the cause of the closure is. The purpose of us having an inquiry is to actually get to the bottom of it. Let's actually test what is the cause, and let's, as a Primary Production Select Committee, at no additional cost to the taxpayer, because we're sitting in committee every week, the Parliament's sitting, dealing with matters like this. Let us assess and evaluate and seek expert advice on it, hear from the growers, hear from Heinz Waddies, hear from McCain, and hear from members of the public who want to voice their opinions on it and make recommendations to the Parliament. Now, as to the question of what options there might be for the government, we have, in the course of our history, been willing to intervene to protect important industries. We currently have a deindustrialization going on. We're losing mills, we're losing these food processing facilities. Tallies have said they're going to lose their fish processing potentially. I think we should be willing to ask the question, is there a place for public investment in keeping this sort of food processing capability in New Zealand? And I personally think that's a serious conversation to have. And I would like to see the likes of New Zealand First and Taine Randell supporting that. I think they, interestingly, like the Greens, are more willing to be a little interventionist on these things for the good of the country.
Steve, what has the appetite been from your fellow Primary Production Select Committee members on this inquiry?
So I'm bringing it back to them again this week. I'm sending a letter today, actually, calling on them to bring it to their caucuses and get support for an inquiry. When I called for an urgent vote on it on the 2nd of April, the Labour members supported it. The acting national members did not support it, but they, in their defence, said that they hadn't had a chance to take it to their caucus. They will have a chance this week, and so I'm asking them to consider again, for the good of the country, that we have a cross-party inquiry into the cause of these closures and what can be done about it.
Steve, so interesting. So we'll follow that quite closely. And look, it makes sense what you're talking about. And if there was certainly some easy wins somewhere along the line, and you can unpick those or figure something out there, excuse me, that's a good use of, I think, a good use of a select committee's time. Just coming back more broadly to Green Party, and you are the Green Party Ag spokesperson, and I know there's a lot of cynicism amongst the ag sector about Green Party ag policies, but just outline a couple of policies or what the vision coming into, we're talking election manifestos. I don't know if you've released policy yet, but what sort of things should the ag sector be considering and thinking about what the Green Party are proposing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Look, I think the thing to understand is the context of the Greens is that food and fibre production is vital to the world. The world needs to be able to feed itself. We as a country have a massive part of our cultural identity and our economic backbone is food and land production. We have to be able to do that in a way that protects the integrity of the environment, keeps our fresh water clean, protects our biodiversity, and doesn't exacerbate or intensify the problem with global heating, which is a global problem, a planetary problem. We genuinely believe as the Greens that we can do all those things. We don't accept the idea that we have to constantly sacrifice the integrity of climate for us to produce food. Now, where the challenges, where the rubber hits the road is the extent to which we put in place regulatory frameworks that do protect things like freshwater, do protect things like biodiversity, and the right of landowners to do what they like on their own land. I would say the simple principle is that it is the duty of the regulator and the legislative to set the frameworks within which any business or industry can operate. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about saying what you can't do. These are the lines that we can't cross. You can't pour oil into the local river. These are reasonable things that we should expect. Now, agriculture is both the biggest challenge we have environmentally in terms of the climate, but also the biggest opportunity we have. We're next to irrelevant in any other subject area globally. We are absolutely relevant in farming and food production. I believe the opportunity is enormous for us to transition to more sustainable ways of doing food and farming, and that is something that we can offer to the whole world in terms of the challenges we face. I'm constantly inspired by what I see farmers doing in New Zealand, the innovations, the ways that they're dealing with addressing these challenges. And I think there can be much better support from government to farmers who are doing that real heavy lifting and mind work and innovation and imaginative work on how do we farm more sustainably in a way that's farm gate profitable. A couple of specific things I'll talk about. We've taken a distinct stand against the loss of high country farms to pine forestry. One of our policy positions is to take forestry out of the emissions trading scheme to stop the distortion which sees the loss of pastoral land to forestry. We'll put in place a biodiversity fund to support farmers who want to protect wetlands or protect native forest on their land. We also are seriously going to fund the managing of wilding pines. We risk losing a fifth of our land area to wilding pines by the middle of this century if we don't do anything about it, at a cost of billions of dollars. It's absolutely unconscionable to not thoroughly invest in ensuring we protect our land area, both for conservation values and for farming value from the spread of wilding pines. Those are a couple of things that we're committed to. There are many other things, but that's just a snippet of what the Greens stand for that I think is good for farmers, and farmers are supportive of whenever I speak about these things.
Steve, you do make sense, just as does many other politicians. However, I think your biggest threat is the Opportunity Party, and Daniel Ebb coming in as deputy leader is a threat for those who want to support some of your policies. How do you feel about that?
Oh, listen, I love that we have a diverse democracy, and I encourage all political parties to, take their positions, and we get to vie for the support of the public. And what a privilege it is to live in a country where we have a thorough democracy, and we can, without coming to blows, share our differences of opinion politically. Good luck to them, and good luck to any political party who's seeking the support of the New Zealand public. We obviously have a very clear, long-standing mandate and position that we hold as the Greens. We've been in Parliament since 1999, an uninterrupted period in Parliament, and we've achieved a lot of things that we're very proud of. So we'll continue to stand on the platform that we represent, and good luck to other parties in their efforts.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time. Steve Abel, the agricultural spokesperson for the Green Party there.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Andy?
Thanks very much. Yes, Sarah.
Are you there?
I am. Can you not see me?
I can now.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Thoughts. Look, Steve is a thoroughly decent human, and I always appreciate talking to him. He told me off, actually, last time I interviewed him a wee while ago. I got quite a grumpy text. I just was going to remind him of that. But anyway, but the considered nature of his answers there, I think that's why I wanted him on the show. Like, I think we've got to show all views and all points of views. And Steve articulates it very, very well. And I do want to talk to him more as we get into this campaign, because I think it's beholden on us to actually show and give everyone the opportunity to speak. My only problem with green policy when it comes to, it all sounds really good, but when you really dig into it, when it comes to their agricultural policy, when it comes to production, all of their ideas generally come at the expense of scale. It's really good if you want to be a country of peasant farmers, but that's not us. And so there is a real tension there. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, valid point. I just wanted to highlight there around the rise of the Opportunity Party, and some people might think that it's irrelevant, but having Daniel Ebb in there is a really good friend of the agricultural sector that sits in that in-between centrist perspective on this. The problem Steve's got is, he could have a really realistic agricultural policy, but it's his party that he belongs to that people won't touch him with a barge pole because of everything else. And that's the thing I feel sorry for Steve on.
Yeah, it's kind of the collateral around the outsides, when certain leaders who tend to be so reactionary to everything make them toxic, to people, but just having the opportunity to have Steve on, he just sent me a lovely text just then, thanking me so much for the opportunity to come on and speak. And I think that's what I'm saying about him, a thoroughly decent human. So lovely to have him on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we heat up to the 2026 election, you will see things like panels and debates and all sorts come out of Countrywide Connect, because Andy and I thrive off it. They're really good segue there to talk around wood and forestry with our next guest, which I am just double checking is on the line.
Yes, he is. I can see him.
Apologies. That just throws me just slightly. You getting to see who's there,
Yeah, see,
Andy.
I've got an advantage here. I might be remote, but I can actually tell you what's going on. So.
Wonderful. So on the line now we have Mark Ross, who is the CEO of the Wood Processors and Manufacturers Association, an association I have come to know a little bit about in the last couple of years. And Mark has been leading the charge there after being at the New Zealand Animal and Plant Health New Zealand. Mark, firstly, let's start with the election manifesto the WPMA have. What's your 5 points that you would really like to get across to these politicians?
Oh, good morning, Sarah and Andy. Thanks for having me on the show. A beautiful day down here in Wellington, and great to see people enjoying the sun. Hey, look, on the manifesto side we released last week, we've got a 5-prong attack to the government opposition parties heading to the election. The first one there is around supporting value-added products. So that's turning harvested logs into product that's worth a lot of money, I guess. So timber and panels, pulp, paperboard, right through to forest borough products, and putting support into the domestic economy. The second one there is focused around market access and trade. We need to export our product because the market within New Zealand's not big enough. And we're good at doing that, so we need support there. The Indian Free Trade Agreement, we'd love to see that get across the line. We see big opportunities, for example. The third one we've got there is domestic infrastructure, roads, energy. The Resource Management Act is a great example where consents in our sector examples taking 13 years and up to 2 million just to get a consent to extend a processing plant. And it's great to see the new legislation has actually got wood processing specified within a 1-year consent. So we're really supportive and pushing that along. The fourth one there, great for wool, but we'd love to see wood also in the government procurement process when it comes to making decisions about using local environmental goods and products. So, using wood will support our economy, rural communities and environmental goals. And the final one there we got is around workforce when it comes to health and safety, really important for our sector, plus making sure the skilled workers are there available, whether they're migrant labour or domestic. So your 5-prong approach, and we're going to be pushing that going into the election.
Mark, earlier in the week, I think it was this week, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, was it last week, when we were talking about using wood biomass for energy production. Mark, is that something, we talked to the professor, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, I was busy trying to find it, about it, and he was very bullish on the ability, on the technical side of it, we can use wood for biomass. Is that practical, to your sense? Is that something which is 5 to 10 years, or is this something, hey, we can move into this?
Oh, look, it's a really curly one because you have a tree that is the core supply product going into the biofuels, but that tree's in the ground for up to 28, 30 years. So the company growing that tree would want the best price for their tree. And unfortunately, biofuels won't offer that price. But by exporting the logs or turn into value added, you get a higher price. So it's sort of a cost, I guess, hindrance at the moment, in that the price that the biofuel people will pay won't match the other price of the trees. So we do have plenty of trees, plenty of wood debris in the ground, but it's been used for other sources, whether it's producing pulp, which will pay a higher price than biopellets, or whether it's being used for other parts of the supply chain. So we're really behind it. I think the secret is to start small. A lot of work going on, but the big investment, they've got to have that log supply, that wood supply for 10, 20 years to make it viable. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars probably to set up a viable hub, and it's going to be something long term, but we're really behind it. But we need the wood supply to actually make it happen.
Mark, I really love you to explain a little bit more to my co-host about the power of wood in commercial buildings here in New Zealand and what that procurement policy could look like to ensure that there is investment certainty for processors here at home.
Oh, look, sure. We love wood. There's a building going down the road here next to the Beehive, and it's been using mass timber from a couple of local suppliers. And it's the whole look of the wood. People want to hug a tree, but you see wood and you want to touch it versus steel concrete. But a big part of the wood is that it absorbs carbon. So it takes carbon out of the atmosphere, so it can help us meet our goals when it comes to the Paris Agreement, which is really important for the export market. So, and also just supporting local communities. But, wood, it's been used down the road also in the Wellington Toe earthquake, and wood stands up a lot better within an earthquake versus concrete and steel. People talk about fire risks, but research shows that actually engineered wood product, it chars, but it won't actually burn to the core. So actually, it's actually better than steel or concrete, which will actually twist or evaporate. So, look, there's a whole lot of reasons to use wood, and we really want to push that. Pine Australia plantations are sustainable. We grow great wood, and they're well managed.
Mark, we've been talking a lot this week on the show about the Indian FTA. What does that mean for the New Zealand wood?
Oh, look, we're really behind it. We pay tariffs from 5 to 11% at the moment on wood products, various wood products, and 95% of those tariffs will be taken away on day one, which will be fantastic for our sector because, it's a low profit margin. You're talking 5 to 10%, that's probably the profit margin. In pre-2020, we exported over $320 million worth of wood products, logs, pulp to India, and that's dropped right down to 70 million for various reasons. We'd like to see that build up again. Competitors such as Australia already have no tariffs under their free trade agreement. Canada's doing a lot of work, and we need to be getting this free trade agreement across the line. People are quite excited about the potential in India, a $1.4 billion population, predicted to be a $1.5 billion wood market, one of the biggest wood markets in the world in the near future. So if we can get across the line, it'll be fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you so very much for joining us at the last minute. Mark Ross, CEO of Wood Processors and Manufacturers Association. Look forward to having you again on the show, Mark. And I was just thinking, I think we should get Wayne Mulligan in here to give us a 101 on the work that he is doing with wood, which is mind-blowing in regards to replacing fuel, right?
Yeah, no, fantastic. Using a whole tree can do chemicals, plastics, you name it. Fantastic options. Looking forward to the opportunities, and thank you for having me on the show.
Amazing. Mark Ross there, WPMA. Andy.
Yes, Sarah.
Your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. Look, it's one of the things we do best in this country is grow trees. Mm-hmm. And right tree, right place, got to keep saying that. But the more that we can use it, the better we can earn overseas dollars and make good money for our communities. And so I think it's really important. Really interested in that science, though. I'd love to have a look at that. As you know, I love looking at these new scientific advances in using products and using every single scrap of it. Interesting thoughts there on the biomass. Not quite as bullish as I thought he would be, to be honest.
No,
Sarah.
It doesn't stack up quite like our scientists said commercially, and that's why I just wanted Mark to highlight that.
You were quite pushy on that. You were quite pushy on that.
Well, I just kind of had various different conversations that were kind of counterintuitive to what he was saying. But the thing I'm really big on, Andy, is, our dear friend Steve Abel and Taine Randell before about the viability of manufacturing here in New Zealand. It needs investment certainty. And to have investment certainty, you need scale. And for scale, the best scale in New Zealand is government procurement and council procurement of our own products first and foremost. And if we don't support our own New Zealand manufacturing from a national perspective, we won't have a viable industry for the domestic use that we need it for the security of some of these key elements. So that's the same, wool carpet manufacturing, just the same as wood processing.
Yeah, well, maybe we need to get Minister Patterson on and discuss it. He is the Minister of War. Maybe he needs to be the Minister of Wood as well.
Yes, exactly. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on Countrywide Connect. You can email the show at any time, connect@country-wide.co.nz, as well as drop into our DMs across social media. For those of Andy's generation, that is a direct message, and it's when you message the page. As well as we're going to get text messages. And we're even looking at WhatsApp. You know, you have a platform, Countrywide Connect's going to be on it. TalkTick. Yes, I can't wait to make top ticks with Andy for our Countrywide Connect. We are broadcasting live on multiple different channels and working on rolling out our app hopefully next week. Coming up after Rural News with Richard Badley at 12 o'clock, we have Jaden Drought, the owner of Farm Trader and the current president of Tractor and Manufacturers Association.
Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lapp.
Hi team, the latest rural insights out now from Bailey's. Look, fantastic momentum in the dairy industry at the moment. Commodity prices are fantastic, interest rates are down, stable government, all the stars are aligning for this year, so why wouldn't you want to be involved? We're seeing record sales for the first part of the season, so talk to your local Bailey's agent and they'll give you the full insight of what's been happening in the last few months.
We're a fourth generation business, starting with my grandparents.
In our family, innovation has been a mindset. We're always looking to adopt technology that allows us to apply our management practices with as much precision as we possibly can.
You can't execute this vision without good support around you, so DairyNZ have been there right from the start.
And we're very confident for the future because we have a very strong governance team, and we include the DairyNZ in that governance team to help us find a way to achieve our business goals.
Working the land is all go, all the time. Nature waits for no one. So for workwear that can weather the weather, we got you. Shop offers in store, online, Farmland Pro, or with your rep.
Our first thoughts when Sarah introduced it to us, I thought game changer in almost every possible way, from cost savings, environmental impact, the precision and accuracy of just keeping everything efficient, time saving too really. We are now reassessing our farming business because we have potential to be more productive. We can now look at increasing our stocking rate because we can now put fertiliser where it needs, which means in return we get more grass. It really allows us to optimise nutrient management. We can use the tools to map out and just put the nutrients exactly where it's needed.
The sense to accurately detect she is on heat. The sense to know she is unwell. The sense that you can hold in your hand. It just makes sense.
Countrywide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lapp. Keeping up with the news is a lot like working the land. It's all go, all the time. Nature waits for no one. Farmlands is here to help this with expert advice, reliable products, and timely supply.
This is Countrywide News, Countrywide Connect News, with Farmlands. Good afternoon, I'm Richard Badley. Stock exclusion rules get the overhaul from the government as, the government is overhauling stock exclusion regulations, replacing blanket national rules with locally tailored decisions based on on-farm risk and regional conditions. Agriculture Minister Tom Nic Lees says the previous approach was widely seen as inflexible and in some regions disproportionate to the environmental benefit. The key change amends Regulation 17 of the Resource Management Act's stock exclusion regulations, so beef cattle and deer that are not intensely grazing are no longer automatically excluded from natural wetlands supporting threatened species. Associate Environment Minister Andrew Hoggard says well-managed low-intensity grazing near wetlands can provide natural weed control, reducing the need for chemicals. Hoggard says the focus is now on fit-for-purpose farm plans tailored to specific catchments and on-farm risks, rather than one-size-fits-all directives from Wellington. New Zealand's beef cattle herd grew 4% in 2025 to 3.8 million head, according to the final figures from Stats NZ's Agricultural Production Survey. The increase of 153,000 animals continues a longer trend, with beef cattle numbers up 8% over the past decade. Dairy cattle numbers dipped 1% to 5.7 million, while the sheep flock fell 1% to 23.3 million. The longer-term picture shows a more significant shift. Sheep numbers are down 20% over 10 years, and dairy cattle have fallen 11% from their peak. New Zealand's grassland base remains stable at 7 million hectares, suggesting the shift in numbers reflects changing land use priorities rather than any reduction in farming activity. Kiwi farmers are facing a rising interest rate environment, with Rabo Research's latest economic update forecasting the Reserve Bank will begin hiking the official cash rate from October, potentially earlier if inflation pressures prove harder to contain than expected. The OCR currently sits at 2.25% following the Reserve Bank's March decision to hold, but the bank has already revised its June quarter inflation forecast sharply upward from 2.7 to 4.2%. The Reserve Bank says weak economic growth may slow how quickly firms can pass higher costs on to consumers, giving it some breathing room before acting. But Rabo Research warns the bank may be underestimating oil price risks from the Middle East conflict. And that's the latest news.
Nature waits for no one. Farmlands is here to help this with expert advice, reliable products, and timely supply. Shop offers in store, online, Farmlands Pro, or with your rep.
I just wanted to quickly ask Richard Badley before he runs out of the studio. Richard, when you were a kid, did you have an all black hero?
I think it's hard to tell. There were so many when I was a kid, because it was a long time ago.
Do you have one that sticks out in your memory?
Sean Fitzpatrick.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's when All Blacks were good, decent, not nice, kind people, weren't they? Taine Randell, Sean Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't really know a lot about them apart from the fact that they were fantastic rugby players. We now know so much more about every single sports star that is on the national scene now, don't we? Following
their wives' Instagrams, you know way too much about their lives.
Yeah, some things we don't need to know.
Why would anyone do that?
Oh,
isn't on the field where it's at? Why are we interested in their wives' Instagrams?
Well,
sorry, but that doesn't compute.
Okay, horses for courses, Andy. I follow your wife's Instagram to know what you're doing.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Thank you very much, Richard Badley, there with our rural news. I just had a quick update on breaking news. Have you seen there's a massive fire outbreak in an oil refinery in Australia, Andy, that supplies 50% of fuel to Victoria?
Just what they need. That's useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, security is very important. Fuel security, food security. Just got an update from both of the ministers who we requested. Neither of them available. Minister Hoggard is travelling. Hopefully we can get him tomorrow. And Minister Macleay is in a meeting that finishes at 1:00. So that's not going to work. So we will have one of them on tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Now, we are going to cross to a very dear friend that I enjoyed having a lot to do with in my time at Rural Exchange back in the day. And I was so excited to see your progress too, Jaden, into the world of publishing. Tell us about your journey into becoming the now owner of Farm Trader.
Yeah, well, it's it's a bit of a blast from the past, isn't it, Sarah? This is kind of a bit of deja vu. Look, I decided, to go into the very unpredictable world of print media. It's been, as you know, something that I've been very passionate about. I'm a resident tractor nerd, and so it's kind of cool, right? It's and every time you present one, and you're so proud of it, it's like another child, So it's really cool. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and the machinery manufacturers and the community it's been humbling, the support that we've been given. So it's very cool. Yeah.
Jade, I love my tractors. I've only got a 26 horsepower Kubota BX 2680 on my life sentence block at the moment, which I absolutely love. It is my most favourite tractor I think I've ever bought. But when it comes to what's happening on the ground at the moment, what's going on with machinery sales? Is there anything that's surprising you? Obviously, it's been a fantastic couple of years for farming, from sheep and beef right through to dairy, and probably not quite so flash for our arable guys, our arable friends. But what's the trends? What are we looking at?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like you say, like commodity prices and on farm, has never been so good, right? And so it's probably the best way to describe it is there's a real difference between what's happening in the North Island and what's happening in the South Island, and also regionally there's a lot of variation, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason. Like some dairying areas, like Waikato, for example, has been quite soft, and last month they were down 10% on the year before, and then you look at Otago, for example, and Southland, they were up 150 and 220% respectively. So some of those regions that, on-farm commodity prices are really strong, are really starting to see a bit of a lift. But in other areas, it can be quite soft. I think there's some nuance as well, though, in that, right? Like we, at the start of the year, generally numbers are a bit softer, and we've seen, to see a trend later in the year, October, November, December, probably more so around manufacturers' balance date. So some of the big manufacturers have either a 31st of October or 31st of December balance date. And so they naturally try and push for a bit of market share later on in the year.
What about the arable guys having a shit of a season and how that's flowing through in terms of upgrading and things?
Yeah, so I think that some of the numbers are, so definitely over 140 horsepower tractor and up, right? Those numbers are continuing to climb in terms of volume. I think that's also probably a little bit representative of tractors on dairy farms getting bigger, and so naturally that market is getting stronger. But the arable, so I think that the arable space has been, I think that we've seen a really soft end to last year. They waited, there's a lot of stock on the ground. They sort of fired up just as they were going into that spring, either planting or whatever they were doing on farm. So we are seeing a little more sit and wait. I think there is also a lot more uptake in technology there, trying to get that efficiency right with, with AutoPath, AutoTrack, AutoPath, some of those kind of things, section control, so that they can save on those inputs. Obviously, diesel's a hot topic at the moment, and so any of those efficiencies that they can get on farm is definitely strong. But they have been probably unfairly chastised in terms of machinery increases, price increases, because they are naturally at that pointy end of the market of high horsepower tractors, and so that's going to the market now. Some of those machines are very expensive.
Jaden, I was interested in you talking about your sales stats, particularly for Otago Southland earlier in the year, and I'm just wondering, do you see big boosts around field days when we have a field day on? Obviously, Waimumu was on. In your data, do you actually see those sales track immediately, or do you see a flow-on effect after the events? Can you see a spike, I guess, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, so it's probably no is the short answer. I mean, for stock on the ground, there will be yes, right? So, but there's, but like a lot of people would go to Waimumu, for example, it's in a perfect window to then indent order a tractor to turn up in the spring. So that number would actually turn up in our data in October or November, even though there is that, but to your point though, I think, particularly at Waimumu, palpable excitement, right? Like, the vibe down there is very good. Farmers are generally, buoyant about what's happening on farm for them. I expect this year, Mystery Creek, I suspect is going to be strong. There's a lot of stars aligning there. And so whether stuff gets sold, these are big ticket items, right? And there's obviously a little bit of, work to do from the dealer's perspective to get these people across the line. But it's definitely still a place to kind of come and have a look. But yeah, there's a little bit of a delay in terms of when they indent order that tractor or if it's stock on the ground.
Jaden, when I went over to Switzerland to the Journalists Ag Journo Congress, I met the company Eco Robotics and started to see a lot of the stuff that's happening in that space with AI and automated tractors and that precision spraying and things like that. And then I've actually just done two stories side by side, one out of the US and one out of Europe. in countrywide. And it seems to be, talking to the local distributor here in Ashburton, are really picking up speed quite quickly in this space. Is are you seeing that? Like the understanding and concept that this is the future's here now, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%, and probably ties back to the arable side, right? Like, we've got tractors now that can steer themselves. You can put parameters and it will turn itself at the headland and then come back and, and put the implement down. So you literally all you're doing is sitting in the tractor being its eyes, right? But there is autonomous tractors. All of the manufacturers have got autonomous tractors working, particularly in the US in a broad acre environment. And for them, it's about machine learning, right? So they might have 10 out the first year and they'll do X amount of hectares, and then they keep going, building that fleet. And then I guess that machine learning then, because the computers that can process this stuff is super, super fast, and it's pretty exciting. I think sprayer technology is probably the one that's the most exciting. Like, you have big 36-meter booms on some of these sprayers that are selectively spraying, particularly green on green, which is, weeds in a barley crop, for example, and it can just spot spray with, north of 70% chemical savings is, that's astronomical technology. And that's kind of where it's heading, right? Like, which is, and so while machinery is getting a lot more expensive, that is a fact, right? But there's so much more tech on them as well. And so I guess the argument is do we need all that tech? Well, probably some people aren't going to use it, but man, there's some exciting stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, well, that comes back to one of my questions, which Sarah and I have been discussing, and on-farm technology, tools versus toys. And I use the example of a dairy farmer buying a big flash new tractor, and you mentioned them buying bigger tractors. But the reality is, how much tech does a dairy farmer, say, need on a loader tractor? And are they over-engineered for those uses nowadays?
I think there's a couple of things. I think tractors are designed now to do more hours. I think what's going to happen is, because machinery is more expensive, people are going to keep them for longer, so that they are naturally going to do more hours on those tractors. I think what we're also seeing is that they'll buy a lower spec tractor, and that might tow the cafeteria or tow calf trailers around and stack a few bales in the shed and whatever that might be, and then they'll spend more money on a more expensive tractor, and that will do their fert spreading and their spraying and the larger feeding out, right? So I think if you look at the early adopters of that, auto track or steering capability, they're like 20% saving in fuel, 20% saving in fert. They're going into a 20 hectare paddock and actually only planting 20 hectares. There's no, in big areas, and again, this is where for the arable guys, a 20 centimetre overlap on these massive machines on big areas, it really adds up, So I think, to your point, some of them don't need a lot of tech, but I think we are seeing a move to people actually adopting that. A lot of people have got bigger tractors because the farms are getting bigger and the implements are getting bigger. And so therefore they can some of the stuff's a bit plug and play with Isobus technology now, where different manufacturer implements can talk to all of the different manufactured tractors, so you get a nice sort of crossover there. It doesn't have to all be a one sort of brand, So I think you're always going to get those people that early adopt that technology, but the savings can be quite profound. And I think in times like this, I think we will see a move towards, more technology to save some money.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not a toy, Andy, if it has a purpose. And Jaden has just highlighted that very clearly.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted it on your 2680, if you wanted to get a screen in front of you so it could, tell you how to mow your lawn straight and that sort of stuff, Andy, I think that's all, it's all, there's a world of possibilities out there.
Can it tell me how to fix a fence post?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it can't,
that's a whole other story, isn't it, Sarah?
It can't save you from yourself, okay? We've got that's your job. Jaden, thank you so very much for joining us on Countrywide Connect. Looking forward to hopefully having you on the show a lot more. It's always a pleasure. Jaden Drought is the owner of Farm Trader and the president of the Tractor and Machinery Association. And Andy, we are now going to cross over, staying in the agribusiness world. Thanks to our great friends at BNZ. I caught up with a couple of months ago following an article in the Countrywide magazine with Andrew Waters, CEO of MyFarm, about where the investment is flowing into horticulture here in New Zealand.
Agribusiness, brought to you by Bank of New Zealand. Committed to agri for more than 160 years, with over 100 agribusiness partners across the country, BNZ is local and ready to support your business through the seasons.
Welcome to the Countrywide podcast, where we dive into the latest issue, and this particular one is Autumn 2026, out in mailboxes and in stores around the country. In each of our Countrywides, we have our very good detailed agribusiness section. And I was looking probably for an opportunity to reach out to this contributor who'll be known to many of you in the industry, Andrew Waters, who's been around with MyFarm for many, many years, particularly just around a pulse on the horticulture sector, but more so who's investing and where, and it led to his thoughts around foreign investment. And Andrew joins me now. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, and your contribution to Countrywide, actually, it's been a really great piece. So just for those who aren't aware about MyFarm, where is MyFarm at now in terms of as a business?
Yeah, I guess our roots were in taking sheep and beef farms and converting them to dairy, but way back in the 90s. And we followed that through with, opportunities to buy land and dairy farms in Southland and Canterbury through to about 2012, 2013, when we then had a couple of very difficult years and the sector stagnated for about 10 years. So went through that difficult period. Farmers were worried about cash flow and certainly returns didn't support land pricing at that time. So we thought about our roots, which was land use change and development, and obviously the next level of potential value beyond dairy farming is and can be horticulture. So yeah, we kind of pivoted. I mean, personally, some of us still have dairy farm assets and very happy to these days. But we kind of pivoted and looked at some of the major sectors. So kiwi fruit, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of rural commercial property. So we own a bunch of chicken sheds, have had and continue to have some investment in forestry, including Manuka forestry. And then we kind of dabbled in a few areas: avocados, cherries, hops, and rocket apples, which we may get to talk about. So yeah, I think when you look at horticulture in New Zealand and agri investing, the big industries are dairy, sheep and beef, kiwi fruit, viticulture, particularly Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc forestry. And some of those sectors are more investable at times and less investable at others. But the big horticultural sectors of kiwi fruit, viticulture, pip fruit, do have a sustainable future. And so that's kind of where we've ended up pivoting to. So back in 2014, we were running about $600 million worth of dairy farms. And today we run a bit more than $600 million worth of everything else but dairy farms.
It's a good way of putting it. And you highlight around that growth where horticulture has outpaced dairy growth in the last 10 years, growing by 100%, just pipping it as a pun. But one of the things you've pointed out is the strength of local capital that's driven a lot of development. What have you seen on your time around capital's appetite?
Yeah, I mean, Kiwis love development and love creating value, and that's what drove a lot of the dairy boom back in the late 90s and early 2000s. New Zealanders flocking to the South Island to develop some great quality assets. And in particular, the kiwi fruit industry has been very strong. There are certainly some family businesses that have grown, but there's also been what I call family corporates and investors, a bit like MyFarm, that have been quite prominent in that kiwi fruit sector. So across horticulture, there's ourselves. We've built up $250 million worth of kiwi fruit operations, Bay Gold, Origin Capital. It's been a bunch that have tended to bring together New Zealand capital plus some overseas capital, to get some quite big investment entities together. So that's probably kind of the best example. Obviously, quite a bit of Kiwi capital gone into developing the Marlborough Plains as well. And then in pip fruit, a range of larger family businesses, the Bostocks and so forth, that have got involved. So, yeah, it's been successful entrepreneurs and family businesses leveraging sometimes other people's money to make investment, because as soon as you get to horticulture, land can be the cheapest thing. So it's actually all the infrastructure that goes on top, and so you end up, even with a 20, 30, 40 hectare development, needing a lot of capital.
So what's your thoughts on foreign investment and the model currently on the table by this government?
Yeah, we and MyFarm enjoyed a relatively permissive environment through 2009 through to 2013-14, where, there was always a bar around the quality of the applicant, who they represented. Is this good quality money with good quality people behind it? And then the test, or the benefits to New Zealand test that exists, was relatively permissive for, buying a dairy farm and, perhaps putting in a rotary cow shed, doing some drainage, that sort of thing you could get. So we had quite a bit of German and Swiss capital come in through us at that time, and some in UK. There was a bit of Chinese investment money around Shanghai Pangshin. I think they were renamed themselves, but that kind of got caught up in politics. And a bit of xenophobia maybe, and with political parties changing, that became quite problematic. And then I think another government party also came in and started tightening up around environmental rules, so almost made it impossible to do a dairy farm conversion, which had always been the staple of overseas investment. So it became, for probably 10 years or more, almost impossible to do a dairy purchase through OIO. One's just occurred. So I think whilst the rules are the same, the way the rules are being interpreted have become easier. And it is quite possible to buy a block, very possible for an overseas investor to buy a block of land and put kiwi fruit or cherries or anything on it. But it is a faff, it is difficult. And one of the issues that probably people don't realise is $50 million Kiwi for an overseas investor, with hundreds of millions of dollars coming at them from pension contributions. $50 million just isn't much money. It's not enough. And so if you go around accumulating all these small blocks, it just becomes a lot of work. And so they look between New Zealand and Australia and see over Australia, well, I can buy much bigger block sizes. I can do 500 hectares of pistachios, or, not mucking around with a 20 hectare apple block or something here in New Zealand. And then there's this question of, so getting in is I think there should always be an approval step, but timing takes too long. Kind of the blocks. It should be more like forestry, where they had permission to go and get a range of properties up to a certain capital size. And then on the other side, if I sell it, let's say I build up a portfolio of apple orchards, when I come to sell it, who's going to buy? So I think by our calculations, there's at least 15 billion of additional investment needed if the government wants to realise its goal of doubling horticultural exports. And some of that, maybe a third to a half of it, will come from local capital, retained earnings, and maybe not. But I think we really should have still have some standards, but an easier overseas investment regime, because we want the growth. It's the growth which creates jobs, creates taxable income, creates revenue for the government to spend on hospitals, law and order, and all the other things we want. They can't, as somebody pointed out, they can't take the land away. Most of them have got very high standards around ESG, environment, labour, etc. So, I suspect the current government would have loosened the regulations a bit without the influence of New Zealand First, who kind of very, anti that foreign ownership piece.
Out on the farm, the right support goes a long way. Speak to your local BNZ agribusiness partner for insight and expertise you need to farm through the seasons.
Welcome back to Countrywide Connect. It is 12:28. We really appreciate you joining us live wherever you're watching or listening around New Zealand and the globe. You can send us an email, connect@country-wide.co.nz. Andy, you're actually quite lucky that you're based on the coast and you're not here in the breaks. Because just after that interview with Jaden, Cody said to me, I just Googled that Kubota, that big flash tractor that Andy's got, and he goes, looks like an oversized lawnmower.
Cody needs a lesson on what you need on a life sentence block, and that is the perfect life sentence block tractor. So I maybe will get Cody over and he can have we plant it. It is my favourite toy. Hey Sarah, just speaking about live, we haven't told Tracy Brown this yet, but we've got Minister Hoggard on the show at 1:45. So just confirm that. So Tracy, if you're listening, we'll send you an email and tell you you're not on. You'll be on tomorrow.
This is a fluid, fast-paced, moving show, and you don't know at the start of the show or the start of the week that you're going to be talking to Taine Randell and Andrew Hoggard in the same show. I'm sure Tracy will be fine. It'll be great to talk to her tomorrow. Good work on pulling that through, and Andrew coming through to us at 1 o'clock today. Just on that though, in terms of lawn mowing, the other day, my husband loves to mow the lawns with the ride-on lawnmower. We've got an acre. And I said, oh, God, our lawn looks nice. And he said, yeah, he did it up and down in rows with his headlands as opposed to the round and round that blows the grass, that I do and make a mess everywhere. And I just thought about it then, that because all the other retired cockies that have moved in and built their dream last house in our subdivision, Andy, they've all got these robotic lawnmowers, and it's lawn porn. That's the biggest competition. They're ex-farmers, they're ex-agronomists, and the thing that they're going on about their lawns, whereas my husband's not allowed to get a robotic lawnmower. So now he's making it look like we've got one with the ride-on.
He could get auto steer on it. Maybe we should get Jaden to put auto steer on his ride-on for it, right?
One of those the handles that go like that. So
No. Just so it just auto, like GPS it, and then auto steer, so he can't go crooked, right? So he's got to go straight.
I think Will would like that when I'm driving, so that I'm not actually, running over.
Your car. You need that on your car.
Just in my whole life. Hey, talking about taking health and safety very seriously, which I do, and our next guest knows that I do. I am really looking forward to catching up with Lindy. I believe she's on the line. Lindy Nelson, are you there?
I am. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and I can see you. How are you, Lindy?
Brilliant. I'm good. I'm really good. And hey, thanks for the call. I am travelling, but the fine folk at PGG have found a room for me, so you don't have to have me sitting on the back of the ute.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Lindy, which part of the world are you in today?
Sarah, we're about to go out from the boat at the Marlborough Sounds, but weather it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride.
Good luck. I know it will be well worth it once you get there. Now, Lindy, thank you for picking up the call because obviously jumping off the back, as Andy said there earlier, of the Fonterra payout, what a great investment to make is in the practical on-farm steps that you can take to look after the well-being of yourself and workers, and Safer Farms really getting them behind this cause. Can you explain a little bit more about it?
So you're talking about the Safer Rides program yes. So we did this in 2024 and had a really successful campaign around bringing to attention that there are some tech add-ons that we can put on our bikes that really increase the chance of us, in the event that something goes wrong, that we have a safety backup system. So this is a new campaign. So it involves, I guess you'd call it a nudge for farmers to go, hey, simple steps make an incredible difference. We've been partnered by DairyNZ, Craigmore, Rabobank and PGG, as well as Fleetpin and Trax, and of course our sponsor ACC to go, let's do it again. Let's get some discounts going. Farmers love a good deal. But alongside that, it's a campaign to raise awareness of saying, hey, we haven't sorted this issue yet. We are still having more fatalities and accidents. And hey, who has got 87 days to take off work in their farming business? And that is the average time when people get hurt on quad bikes or our side-by-sides. That's the average time required. And I do not know many farmers who have the capacity in their business to replace themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I think the campaign that you're doing in association with ACC at the moment, it's really genuinely bringing home that cost loss opportunity of taking someone out after injury. The costs are huge and we don't think about them.
No, we don't. I mean, we all know around the deaths, but it's the deaths and the cost to our families, our farming businesses if we get hurt. And this is some simple steps that we can do, and also some kit that we can put on our bikes that actually really works. And I've just been delivering a leadership program for Farmer Council. I heard the coolest story yesterday, Sarah, which makes me go, yes. And it just came up in conversation with one of the farmers, I'm not going to say who it was, that their staff member had a incident a wee while ago, was just out mustering, just turned around, have a look to see had they left anything behind, and the next thing, the bike was over. That person had a lifeguard on the back. The bike was completely written off. That person walked away. And I said, this is great. When we get these stories of, we know they work, but when we get stories like this, it really cements that actually farmers are quietly in the background. They are taking up these offers. They are getting the message. And wow, I get really emotional about this because I know as a farming sector, we can do this. We can do this stuff. Yep, we may not have paid attention to it in the past, but we really care for people who work with us. And we need to care a little bit more for ourselves as well. And the stuff works.
We are definitely moving the dial, but I mean, when it comes to these quad bike accidents, which are just absolutely heartbreaking and devastating when we see them in our news, Lindy, do we get a sense that we're shifting the dial enough?
Not enough and not fast enough, for sure. But we know the last campaign we ran, within 24 hours, we had 130 people click through and take up that voucher offering and put roller protection on their bikes. So that, if we can keep repeating that, if we can make it the norm that we are doing the simple things about wearing helmets, if we can make it the norm that we are realizing that actually it's not just about us and our experience and how good we are on the bike, the unexpected happens. So how do we fail safely? And I'm going to go back to what I always say, we wouldn't drive a car without the kit that helps us avoid those things where the unexpected happens.
Oh, absolutely. And the work that Safer Farms is doing is the long game, Lindy. And the industry are behind Safer Farms. Do you think that it will wear thin on the industry if we don't see progress though? Like, what do you think we can be doing to make everyone aware this is a long-term game?
It is a long-term game, but we've got some quick wins, Sarah. We know there are 4 high harm things that we need to focus on. And I'm in this game because I love farmers. I love our rural communities, and I trust them that we can do this and get it right. Will it wear thin? I really hope not. But what is really helping now? It's the story is farmers talking to farmers. So it's going to be less about us and more about getting our champions out there, sharing stories of the good practice that farmers doing, the easy wins, the quick tips, and farmers trust other farmers. And so we have 3 champions out there at the moment, and next month I'm bringing 10 more together. So they come from a whole different lot of backgrounds with a whole lot of different experiences. Now, these people are ordinary farmers. They are not health and safety experts, and it's ordinary farmers talking to other farmers and bringing the vision of everyday farming people protect one another from preventable harm to life. This is about what I call the dirty boots on the ground, finding practical solutions where the work is done. This isn't the shiny shoes. We're not creating policy. We're creating a movement of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, George Dodson, Roger Barton and Chloe are all amazing examples of that. Roger Barton has penned me a piece for Countrywide Winter, which will be out soon, wearing that Safer Farms hat. But that relatability is what changes cultural norms. And it's so important. I was just reflecting on an interview we did around firearm safety. And the guy said, it's mates looking after mates. It's the mates calling out the other mates in the mai to say, hey, bro, that's not cool. That's not how we do things around here. We need that similar thing when we go in any environment on farm. Like, it's not really cool not to wear a helmet on a bike anymore.
Well, when the majority of deaths and injuries are head injuries and then crush injuries because the bike has come on you, it's foolish. And it always makes me giggles that farmers who go, oh, I don't like wearing the helmet, go biking in the weekend with their mates with the full kit. And so
true.
We got to just look at ourselves and go, really? And I trust that farmers will do that. And we just need a bit of a shift and go, like, what's really important? Our farms are important to us. Our families are important to us. Staying in business is important to us. So let's do it.
Yeah.
And that whole relatability of other farmers talking to farmers about how it's done is really important. And look, I've got the hugest respect for our champions out there because they're not experts at health and safety. And you're vulnerable when you put yourself out there to go, hey, this is what I'm doing, for judgment. So it's brave of them. And it's that bravery that's going to take us forward as farmers, protecting one another.
So talk us through, again, the incentive that's there, where to go, what it is.
Sure. So it's a monetary incentive to get 2 things, the fleet pin and the tracks equipment. So fleet pin is the GPS early warning system. And I kind of align it to, all the beeps you have on your car now when you're going to do something wrong. That tell you, they warn you, something's gone wrong. So it's kind of like that. And then tracks have the crash protection device. And, I know on our farm, when we put it on for our stock manager, he was a bit like, how am I going to get my dogs on the back? Well, I took a photo the other day, he had 5. So, it is possible, and we're going to dispel those myths. So there's a discount incentive, but there's also some hot tips, I guess, the little checks that you can do, 3 minutes, quick check that can save an incident occurring. So education and discount.
I had a warning the other day, Lindy, on my Ford Everest, and it was that I was out of AdBlue, which I'd ignored for about a month. And so I learned that the hard way. It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night that the truck needs AdBlue to turn on. So in terms of warning bells that we keep ignoring, I think, in a world of overwhelm, there's so many bits and pieces happening. And for a farmer who's got a million things going on across farm, we do so many things automatically and hope the world around us is going to protect us. But we actually have to stop, think, and put those protections in place to allow for that to protect us in the future.
Absolutely. Simple thing. Think about how you fail safely, because most of those incidents are something inadvertent, beyond your control, has happened.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Lindy Nelson, Ambassador for Safer Farms, joining us, talking about that great incentive. Head to the Safer Farms website. Farm Without Harm is the campaign, and the great initiative there with the rollover protection. Andy, are you back with me?
Yes,
Have you
I
seen
am
those
back.
Have you seen those devices on the back of the quad bikes? I actually have done some filming, been out on farm with them, and heard some pretty awesome survival stories because of them.
Yes, I have seen them, and they are, especially those round ones that sort of, or those half round ones that that do sort of move, and they've got soft around the edge, so they do protect the person underneath it. And because I've told the story before, and Lindy knows this, I've had a couple of negative experiences, ended up under my own quad bike a couple of times, once underwater and actually once under it and broke a rib under my bike, and luckily I was fine. But certainly, so it's very real to me. It's very, very personal, because I've had both of those experiences. And then I'm not sure if you brought it up, but there was a recent tragedy with a farmer under a bike. And so honestly, I just wonder why we don't see this as, I know mandatory is not kind of the right word, but certainly the cost of these is minuscule, as Lindy would have said, compared to the ongoing damage and hurt to a family.
Oh, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I think every single farming family in New Zealand, and anyone that works in the rural sector, will know of someone who's been affected by an on-farm tragedy. So to drive that emotive part home, we don't really need to. We need to drive home the small actionable wins that we can do in advance. So if you're hearing this and you need to just take a step back for 2 seconds and think, what more can I do? Because it's moved now seriously beyond the realm of paper pushing. It really is serious stuff.
Look, and I know you like to take a little bit of fun of my vintage, but we have moved significantly from the attitude back when I started farming, right at that time, to this is now just not, I shall be right, harden up. I actually saw on the farm once a friend who wasn't a farmer who came in. We went out on the farm bikes, and I spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes giving them a message, a lesson effectively, and told them that these things are dangerous, they seem stable, they're not. He actually came down off a hill, was slightly on angle, hit a stone and flipped it right at a slow speed. And he stood up at the end of it. He was fine, but he stood up and he said, I thought you were just being overly dramatic. And it was a really real lesson, just to how serious and how quickly things go wrong on a quad bike.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Now we are going to cross to Minister Hoggard, who is joining us on the line, Associate Minister for the Environment. Andrew, thank you very much for your prompt reply. I just want to know what Andy's got over you to be able to turn up so quickly. I really appreciate it. You don't have to answer that, by the way.
No, just trying to make technology work. No, just,
doing your job.
Andy, if I can deliver, I'll deliver.
You're a good man. Thank you very, very much. Hey, so talk to us about the stock exclusion rules becoming more practical.
So this is, I guess, a continuation of changes we made last year around where you had from waterways, and particularly the big extensive properties, not forcing them to go and fence off thousands of kilometres of waterways where you're only running a few sheep and some beef, and your sort of iconic high country stations. We're now also making sure that we're not spending a whole heap of money where you've got extensive grazing occurring around wetlands as well, which again would have put in a huge amount of costs for marginal, if any, environmental gain. So it's just trying to be more practical with these rules. And I guess a main focus for us is the work around farm plans, having the work that farmers do be focused on what are the challenges on their farm, in their catchment, what are the things they need to be doing to manage those critical source areas, not just dreaming up a sort of one-size-fits-all rule in Wellington.
Yeah, Andrew, I suppose the question a little bit is the definitions. What is the definition of a wetland, and what's the definition of low intensity? Has that part of this at this point? I mean, I see you, but I guess, that's when the criticism is going to come, right? From people, from who.
Yeah, look, and I mean, the whole definition of wetland, I'm on my way up to Taranaki now, and last time I was up there, I was visiting a bunch of farms that have been caught up with wetland rules. And, even a classic example was the Balance Factory. They wanted to build a decarbonisation plant at the back of it, but the paddock they wanted to do it in, it was viewed as, this is a wetland. Now, quite frankly, you had a standard paddock with a ditch running through it and a few rushes in the ditch, and that got called a wetland. And it was, my definition of a wetland is if you walk across it and you've still got your gumboots on the other side, it's not a wetland. That's sort of my practical view of it. And so the definition is, it's very contentious and up for debate a lot. In terms of intensity, what is extensive? Generally, if you're running animals behind a wire, doing that, break feeding them, that's generally viewed as intensive. Where you've got lots of animals spread across a paddock, generally that's viewed as extensive in the beef space. It is a challenging one to try and come up with definitions, and so you often just got to come back to some simple practical measurements.
Yeah.
Just on the ruling, and this is from the press release, Regulation 17 of Resource Management Stock Exclusion Regulations, which relates to natural wetlands that support threatened species. That's the other component of this, right? The definition of a threatened species has been amended, so no longer applies to beef cattle or deer that are not intensively grazing. So it's not just every wetland, right, we're talking about here. It's the ones that specifically have threatened species in them. And then again, definition of a threatened species, is that generic?
Again, it can be in one region different from another. I believe I'd have to dig right into the detail, but I imagine there's a bit of a list of what are threatened species. But again, the key thing here is often these areas are on your sort of extensive properties, and, it's really hard to sort of fence them off without creating all sorts of other challenges where, at a particularly, at a dry time of year, it's not going to cause a lot of harm to get the cows or the deer or whatever, just in light number, being able to wander through, take care of some of the grass and all the rest of it. And, the harm is very minimal. It's not where you get the damage is where you've got, intensive mobs moving through and pretty much, knock everything right down. What we're talking about here is the odd beef cow wandering through an area.
Yeah, you've really upset Holter's model now, Andrew, because that was their selling point, to be able to get people to put collars on.
Well, no, I mean, I still think that'll be still a thing where those farmers can look at it, be really practical about it and go, actually, it's bloody wet right now. We don't want the animals going into this area because it'll cause damage, even if it's extensive. And also, Murphy's Law, if you're going to have an animal go down, it's never on a flat piece of paddock. It's always in a gully or a wetland or a bog somewhere. So, that model's still valid for Holter there of being able to, manage those animals in those sort of areas. And it's actually, quite frankly, a much better way of doing it, utilising that geofencing.
It certainly is. I guess one of the issues you're going to get immediately out of this is a knee-jerk reaction from all and sundry. But even just the casual listener listening to this, what can you say to them that means, to give them confidence that we're not just degrading environmental standards willy-nilly?
Look, I think the main thing is each farmer having a farm plan. Where this is being done at a catchment level, and it's an area you're probably well familiar with, Andy, over in the West Coast. And I did a big trial there, Lake Moana, is it, I believe?
Yeah,
Yep. So every farmer in the catchment there did a farm plan and they saw a step change in reduction of contaminants in that going into that lake. And to me, that is the sort of thing we need to be focusing on is, a combination of the farm plan, being involved in the catchment care group, and a key part of catchment care groups working is that those farmers in that group understand what are the risk areas on their farm and what are the mitigation steps they can take to avoid it. To me, that is the work that we as an industry need to be doing at the catchment level, knowing what are the challenges, what are the issues, and then at the farm level going, okay, how do I contribute to those challenges and what are the smart, practical things that I can do on my farm that will mitigate those effects.
I'd love to know your thoughts on this. You're heading to Taranaki. They have been real leaders on farm plans. Canterbury with ECAN, as you mentioned, the West Coast, and multiple other different regions. So what do you think of the situation where Environment Southland only received 9 certified farm plans out of an estimated 3,700 farms that need certified farm plans under regulations by the 27th of May? Culturally, something is different is happening in Southland for them to understand that message. And I believe federated farmers are responsible for that.
Southland's a bit of a different case. So we nationally paused all the farm plans while we're reviewing how they're going to apply and what their focus of them is going to be. Southland had this weird situation with their rules or their district rule where they were going to be required to have a farm plan that was way different to the national one, and it was going to be you can either do the national one or the regional one. So I'll be announcing something shortly that they're not going to need to do the regional one, that we will have in place this national one that they'll be able to do instead. So it's going to make a lot more sense for those farmers to be doing this national farm plan system rather than a bespoke regional one.
But Andrew, why haven't you been able to get this through sooner to give some certainty? Because it's a cluster.
Well, it is. Yeah, look, we put out press release, or we put out something a couple of weeks back giving notification around that. We're just waiting on a couple of things. We have talked to the council in regards to that. Certainly I'm hopeful to be able to make it 100% more clearer very, very shortly. But there's, unfortunately, as I keep getting reminded, no, Minister, you can't go and just say what's on the top of your mind at any point in time. You've got to wait for various things to happen. Otherwise, you'll get yourself in trouble.
It's much better when you do that.
One of those situations.
We enjoy when you do that, Andrew.
It's much better when you do that. We enjoy that way, way better, honestly.
Yeah. I'll be milking cows again if I do that too often, though. Yep.
Hey, one of the issues down in Southland, we haven't looked into it yet, though, is that there's a lot of concern down there about, I think it is about some cultural plans and things. There's a big discussion about that, which we haven't touched. Just quickly before we finish, Andrew, just coming back to the I suppose the press release, down the very bottom there's a note to editor and it says regional councils and unitary authorities remain responsible for managing and enforcing stock exclusion rules that may adopt stock exclusion requirements in their regional plans. Do we risk getting a patchwork of standards across across regions because of that, or is this overriding all of that?
Look, this will be a lot more clearer once we've got the new NEA, what we call National Environment Act, in place with the new national directions. Unfortunately, yes, right now it is incredibly messy because we're sort of phasing out, or the RMA is about to go, but it's still operative. We've got some bits of the new direction coming in. So unfortunately, yes, I would love it if it was a lot more clearer right now. But we are in a bit of a messy situation, but going forward it will be a hell of a lot clearer once we've got that national direction in place so that councils are able to adopt their plans so it takes into account the new national direction.
Isn't that exactly the same as a national policy statement previously and an interpretation by regional councils of a national policy statement?
Yes, so yeah, the national direction will we be replacing the national policy statement? It's just using a different word for it.
But the interpretation by regional councils could lead to the same situation in Southland regardless.
I would not think so. I think we're going to intend to be a hell of a lot more clear and direct on these things.
There's a lot to come on this one, Andrew.
I know.
And I know,
Yes.
I know you're sitting there and I can see you biting your tongue. We'd love you to just tell us right now, but you're not going to, because I know you don't want to go back milking cows just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew,
all right.
thank you very
Should we
much.
let him go before he says something that'll get him into trouble, Sarah? Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. With his Associate Minister of the Environment, Andrew Hogarth, joining us there. If you have missed the news, stock exclusion rules to become more practical, there's an amendment happening there. But clear point that farm plans are not off the table. It's just how they look in each region.
It's interesting, is what he was saying. And that's so just to be clear, that is specifically, that press release is about wetlands, not about stock exclusion out of waterways. There's a subtle difference there. They, as he said, they'd already done the waterways one, so for low intensity, but this is wetlands, and as we said, specifically to do with endangered species as well. So I can see a bit of pushback coming from our friends at Greenpeace and maybe the Green Party and Forest and Bird and Fish and Game and Uncle Tom Cobley and all on this one, Sarah. So good to get Andrew on. Really appreciate Andrew making himself available. Very, very short notice for that.
Absolutely. Hey, it's been a great show. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you've been watching. We've really enjoyed a great fast-paced moving show with lots of different elements, and this is the nature of Countrywide Connect, daily on the pulse, ahead of the game for you to stay up to date on what's happening in rural New Zealand. Any ex-All Blacks on tomorrow, Andy?
No, not tomorrow. We haven't quite. No, I can't give you. Well, unless we get someone in the sports segment. Shall I see what I can find and maybe an ex-All Black or two?
Yep. No, that sounds like a good plan.
What we are looking forward to is the opening of the new stadium on the 24th of April in Canterbury. So Te Kaha, or One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha is the elegant solution for that one. Did you pick that up? So Te Kaha was the name of the stadium, but then One New Zealand came in and bought the naming rights. So then they had to try and figure out how to incorporate the two names into the stadium. So it's now One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha.
Right. Okay, so Te Kaha is effectively the location of the stadium.
Yeah, and the stadium is One New Zealand. So
Amazing. Hey, I'm looking forward to going to the opening. That's not until May. You're going to the super long weekend. That's next weekend.
Weekend after. Yes, it is. It is. Really looking forward to that, actually.
3 days of action-packed rugby.
Yeah, it is 3 days. So, the Friday night is the opening night, the Crusaders versus, I think, the Waratahs. I don't know, your team, who are we?
They're playing against the Blues this weekend. I know that much at Eden Park.
Oh, yeah. Right. Anyway, they'll be there. All right.
Very good.
Yes, we better carry on. Well, thanks for listening and watching. Okay. I'm struggling to get used to that. But yeah.
You're doing good. You've got a face for radio and TV. Andy, thank you so very much for watching Countrywide Connect on the 16th of April. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. live across multiple platforms. And, of course, we'll be on demand on YouTube and podcast to catch up. Cheers.
Countrywide Connect. Connecting farmers and growers to what they need to know to grow. Your daily innovative rural show with Andy Thompson and Sarah Miriam Lang.